诸根众可巴若桑茶贝夏罗娑雷弥梅切为千劫瑞西即梅堪贝王波将贝哦唐见堪贝诸根众可巴得上扎贝夏拉娑雷波罗蜜多心经观自在菩萨心生般若波罗蜜多时，照见五蕴皆空，度一切苦舍利子，得唵不依瑟舍
This is the recitation of the Heart Sutra in Chinese.
Yes, yes.
无苦集灭道，无智亦无得，亦无所得故，菩提萨埵依般若波罗蜜多故，心无怪，无怪故，无有恐怖，愿力颠倒梦想，究竟涅槃三世诸佛，依般若波罗蜜多故，得阿耨多罗三藐三菩提故，知般若波罗蜜多时，大神咒，时大明咒，时无上咒，时无等等咒，能除一切苦，真实不虚。故说般若波罗蜜多咒，即说咒曰：揭谛揭谛，波罗揭谛，波罗僧揭谛，菩提萨婆小三藏诸烦恼 愿得智慧真明力量大愿在内彰显消除常行菩萨道。
Yeah.
So today, to my Dhamma brothers and sisters, I'd like to greet you all. So the prayer that we said at the end of this prayer, may we engage in the Bodhisattva practices, this line. So perhaps we should make it into some kind of a determination rather than a prayer, rather than saying, may I engage in the Bodhisattva practices, I shall engage in the Bodhisattva practices. This would also help to, as a word or line for upholding the Bodhisattvas, the spirit of Bodhicitta. So I shall engage in the Bodhisattva practices.
So
with regard to Bodhicitta, the spirit of enlightenment, however deep experience of emptiness you may have, it will not still help in overcoming the obscuration to knowledge, as Madhyamaka Avatara says. So it pays homage to that of great compassion. So the reason why this is done is so compassion is the seed for the attainment of Buddhahood, and then in the middle it helps as the factor for increasing bodhicitta further, and then finally when you become a Buddha, to help others, serve others. And therefore, with the help of bodhicitta, you will be able to, combined with the wisdom of emptiness, you'll be able to overcome all defilements, the obscuration to knowledge, as well as those of the afflictive emotional obscurations. And so, when you see sentient beings suffering, and you feel compassion towards the sentient beings, seeing their suffering, then you will have the determination to not being able to bear the suffering of others and wishing to look for the means to lead them out of suffering. And therefore, you will think of cultivating bodhicitta, and therefore bodhicitta is very significant. So we'll continue from where we left yesterday. So the essence of true eloquence, towards the end of the text, it goes through the Savatantrika Madhyamaka philosophical assertions or system, and then the Prasangika or the consequential list philosophical assertions or philosophical system. So in any way, Tsongkapa, in his praise to the Buddha for teaching dependent origination, he says, because of the reason of teaching dependent origination, you do not rely on the two extremist views. So the reasoning of dependent origination has the power to dispel both the extremes of permanence and nihilism, rather than unlike those of the reasonings called the unity and plurality. And so the Buddha was somebody who gave teaching on dependent origination, which means the emptiness, which is dependent origination, and then because of dependent origination. And so the dependent origination is the most significant teaching of the Buddha. So the main reasonings to prove that things have no intrinsic identity, so there are four absurd consequences that are mentioned. These refer to the verses in the 6th chapter. Those of the verses 34, 35, and 36 give the... So these logical absurdities that are pointed out, which are that the Arya beings, the meditative equipoise mind would be destroyer of the real entities, and then the conventional truth would withstand analysis of the ultimate reasoning. So, and that. So every morning when I do my meditation, I think, I reflect on these 4 points that I mentioned in these verses, and whether it's whether you think about the self of a person, being, or consciousness, and so forth, everything appears as if they have some kind of an objective, independent existence. So when the object of negation appears to your mind, and you wish to refute it, you are actually doing analysis into how things exist, not the Arya being's mind, which is absorbed in emptiness, first has actually done the analysis of how things exist. And if things were to have any intrinsic characteristics, then they would be found by this Arya being's analytical mind, which is actually looking for how things exist. And therefore, if things were to have any intrinsic, essential existence or characteristics, then this meditative equipoise of an Arya being would be a destroyer of the entities. And then secondly, whether things internal or external, if they were to have any essential identity in and of themselves without depending on others, any other factor, then when you do analysis of how things exist, the conventional truth or reality would have to be able to withstand any analysis of the ultimate reasoning. So if things were to have, if we are able to actually point our finger at something that has intrinsic identity, then the conventional truth would withstand analysis of the ultimate reason. So the yogi does not find anything having any existence when they do analysis through the sevenfold reasoning or the fivefold reasoning. There is nothing that they can point their finger at being this or that, or the compounded or the functioning things being this or that. So if things were to have any objective intrinsic existence, then the conventional reality would withstand analysis of the ultimate reasoning. So the other schools of philosophy say that the objects of our valid cognition must be something out there, objectively. So a valid cognition is that cognition whose object exists just as the cognition perceives. And therefore the lower schools of thought, philosophy says that there should be an object of valid cognition which is self-defined, which has self-defined characteristic. And therefore, if such a thing were to exist, then that would mean that the convention, that objects, those objects would withstand analysis. So when we say objects of cognition, there is nothing, no object which has any intrinsic existence, but conventionally designated, that they are conventionally designated. So it says, thus, when such phenomena are analyzed, nothing is found as their nature apart from suchness. So the conventional truth of the everyday world should not be subjected to thorough analysis. So if things were to have any essential core in and of themselves, then there would be this logical absurdity of the conventional realities withstanding analysis of ultimate reasoning.
What is that?
And then that the ultimate production cannot be denied. That is the third absurdity, logical absurdity. So if things arise from their cause with an essential core in and of themselves, then this logical absurdity would befall upon yourself. And then that the fourth absurdity, logical absurdity, is that the Buddha's teaching phenomena are absent of nature, self-nature would not hold true. So when we say something is empty, the very thing that we are analyzing is said to be empty of any intrinsic existence. So therefore, the very thing that you analyze, how it exists, is empty of any intrinsic existence, the self-nature. So verse number 34, 35, and 36. In the context of suchness, certain reasoning disallows arising from the self or from self or something other, and that same reasoning disallows them on the conventional level too. So by what means then is your arising established? And then empty things dependent on convergences, such as reflections and so on, are not unknown. So things have no existence from their own side, but they are designated. They arise through dependence on conditions. So when you talk about emptiness of a form, for example, a physical thing, the form itself is analyzed and found to be empty of any essential intrinsic existence. So it says, and just as from an empty thing, like a reflection or perception, can arise that bears its form. And so these are the four logical absurdities that are pointed out and mentioned in Rinpoche's Essence of True Eloquence. And also it is mentioned in the the insight section of the great treatise of Stages of the Path. And so what you conclude from these is that things are merely designated, nominal and designated by our thoughts, language and concepts. And so this is the final So Rinpoche makes these points, significant points, in the Essence of True Eloquence. So it says that emptiness does not make phenomena empty as such, but the phenomena itself is empty. And therefore, this shows that things are empty by themselves. So it is not the case that phenomena are empty of something else. So the things that we relate to in our life are empty in themselves. And the emptiness does not make them empty as such. So this is one of the main points that Rinpoche makes out in this Essence of True Eloquence. So in the Madhyamaka Avatara also there is this mention of how a bodhisattva who reaches the seventh ground and beyond outshines the Shravakas with their intelligence, not only by lineage,
총 여배 유전에 냐라 리기관에 쓰기는 말이스.
So when a bodhisattva reaches the first ground, it is said that they outshine the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas by their lineage as bodhisattvas, and they are not able to still outshine them by the power of their intelligence. And there is an argument, a qualm that is raised. So though the Arya beings of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddha yanas do have the so this point, Master Chandrakirti makes this point here also in his auto commentary to Madhyamaka Avatara. So at the seventh ground, the Bodhisattvas are. So by this, he's proving that the Arya beings of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddha also have the realization of emptiness directly. So realizing the selflessness of persons, the coarser level of selflessness of persons may help in kind of suppressing some degree of the clinging to true existence of a person. And so with that kind of a realization, they will not be able to overcome all the defilements like those of the non-Buddhist practitioners. And so without the realization of so with regard to the teaching of the two selflessnesses, in order to realize the selflessness of persons fully, thoroughly, one needs to realize the selflessness of the person, which means that a person is devoid of any intrinsic existence, whatever. And for that, one needs to realize the selflessness of aggregates. As Master Nagarjuna says, that Master Chandrakirti quotes the Ratnavali lines from Ratnavali, which says, as long as there is grasping at one's aggregates, so long you still remain with this clinging to a self. So I have some experience with regards to realization of selflessness in the 1960s or something, around that time. I had some kind of experience when I was reading the commentary of Tsongkapa's commentary on Madhyamaka Avatara. And there was some kind of a lightning striking in my heart. Literally, I felt some kind of a lightning bolt, and there was some kind of a burning sensation also. And when I thought about things ourselves, it seemed that the things do not have any true existence. But then they do not exist. But when I referred to these lines from Ratnavali, as long as there is a clinging to the aggregates, there's still the grasping at the self of a person. So it's not enough just to feel that the self does not exist, but we need to still be able to see that things in self are without any true existence, but that they are merely designated. So as long as you are not able to destroy the objectification of the self, those of the aggregates, you will not be able to realize the emptiness or selflessness of a person fully. So these quotation from Chandrakirti's auto-commentary of the Madhyamaka Avatara is very important. So I wish to mention this one, and also so I read Madhyamaka Avatara part by part, and then these points, the 4 logical absurdities that are mentioned in the essence of true eloquence, also I do reflect on them on a daily basis while going over the Chandrakirti's Madhyamaka Avatara, verses 34 to 36, 37. So we as Tibetans do recite Om Mani Padme Hum, the 6th little mantra. So we need to reflect on them on a daily basis. So if you are really serious about practicing the Buddha Dharma, you need to reflect on these points on a daily basis. So with regard to bodhicitta, we need to think about emptiness and then bodhicitta as well. And with regard to the practice of bodhicitta, Master Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charyavatara is the most excellent text to make the self-cherishing attitude dumbfounded. So all suffering and all happiness in the world comes from wishing others to be happy, all suffering from wishing oneself alone to be happy. And unless you switch your joy and happiness with the suffering of others, live alone, reaching Buddhahood, even in samsara, you will not have happiness. And then, so everyone in this world do not want suffering, but want happiness. Though that is the case, we create all sorts of suffering, and we have all kinds of problems in the world because of our self-centered, selfish, self-centered attitude. And so if you allow yourself be led away by the self-cherishing attitude, there's no way you can attain Buddhahood, leave alone that, but even in samsara there's no happiness. And therefore, which intelligent person, sensible person would feel discouraged to ride the horse of bodhicitta, which leads one from bliss to bliss, from without despair. And then, as you progress along your path, you also have this determination to live for this benefit of sentient beings until the end of space, as this prayer says. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too abide to dispel the miseries of these transmigrators. And so, on the basis of these texts, I do meditation on emptiness and bodhicitta. So, the peace of mind, the source of our peace of mind, main source are these two: the view of emptiness and the equaling, exchanging self and others, bodhicitta. And so you also should do these practices, and in order to do the practice, you should know what you are going to practice, and therefore you should go through the triple process of study, reflection, and meditation without divorcing one from the other. And then at the end, I thought I may do the Bodhisattva Bodhicitta ceremony without having to go through the repetition of having to repeat the lines. So imagine above my head Buddha Shakyamuni, the Shakyamuni Buddha, and the 8 close disciples, such as Maitreya, Manjushri, Avalokiteshwaram, Samandabhadra, Kirtigarbha, Akashagarbha, and Vajrapani, and so forth. And then also the those of the masters, Nagarjuna, and other lineage masters. And so, think along the lines that I recited from this Sattvacharya Avatara, and feel convinced that this is true. So with bodhicitta, you intend to bring benefits to all sentient beings. So cherish others over oneself, and think about or reflect on the disadvantages of self-cherishing attitude, because it brings all ruins to oneself and others. So as we have the opportunity to meet with the Buddha Dharma, just as this prayer says, I pay homage to the Gautama who, moved by his compassion, taught the sacred Dharma to dispel us, to get rid us of all distorted views. So for over 3 countless eons, the Buddha was said to have engaged in the Bodhisattva practices for the benefit of all sentient beings. And as the Shantideva says, all happiness in the world comes from wishing others to be happy. All suffering comes from wishing oneself to be happy. And then so in order to accomplish one's own benefit, we should cultivate bodhicitta. In order to help others, one should also cultivate bodhicitta. And so all the good results such as higher rebirth and so forth, and also well as the ultimate goal of enlightenment comes from this bodhicitta, as the Maitreya prayer of the Maitreya says, aspirational prayer of Maitreya says. Moves you away from, leads you away from the lower realms of existence and leads you to the higher realms and leads you finally to the deathless state. And just as the past Kadamba masters have also said, the bodhicitta helps to accumulate merit as well as purify our negativities. So there is no greater means than bodhicitta to fulfill one's own interest as well as the interest of other sentient beings. So Kunu Lama Rinpoche also, in his praise to bodhicitta, in order to have a relaxed mind, you should practice bodhicitta, and to benefit others and to have a higher rebirth in the next life. Also, it will come from bodhicitta, and so bodhicitta is the one factor which brings benefit to oneself and others. So I shall so when you say, I call upon all sentient beings as my guests, so these lines so the lines that His Holiness recites are, I seek refuge in the three jewels, I confess each and every wrongdoing, I rejoice in the virtues of all beings, I take to heart the state of Buddhahood, I go for refuge until I am enlightened, the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. In order to fulfill myself and the aims of myself and others, I shall develop the spirit of enlightenment and the rest. And so just meditate for a few minutes on bodhicitta, thinking of reaching Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So having developed the spirit of highest enlightenment, I shall invite all sentient beings as my guests. I shall enact that delightful, supreme enlightened practices. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So think along these lines and the others and meditate on bodhicitta.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So with this kind of motive, excellent motive, as Bodhisattva Charyavatara says, today, in the presence of the protectors, I shall call upon all sentient beings as the guests for the lasting happiness or the Sugatahood, and in the meantime, to that of the higher happiness. May gods, demigods, and others be joyful. And in these lines, which are from the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, so today my life has borne fruit and so forth. And just like a blind man, thus, whatever actions I do from now on must be in accord with this family of tradition. Never shall I do anything to disgrace this holy, faultless family. Just like a blind man and so forth. So when we engage in tantric practices, of course, there are, during the initiations, we have the practice of driving away the so-called evil spirits, beings who may harm the procedure of the initiations and so forth. But in reality, you will not be able to find anyone that you can call your enemy to be destroyed or crushed and driven away and so forth. If you think about bodhicitta, well, and so there is a story about a Kadampa Geshe, a master, to whom some local spirits came to harm him. And one of these spirits has said that, oh, this man actually considers us more important than himself. So, therefore, he doesn't deserve our harm. And so there's no need for doing the practice of driving away so-called evil forces. So when you cultivate bodhicitta, you'll have health, you'll have long life. And so this is the one source of all good experiences. And so as the follower of, so if we are able to do the practice of bodhicitta, we would make ourselves worthy followers of the Buddha and Master Nagarjuna and so forth. So I will conclude this Dharma discourse this time here with these words, and we'll start with the question and answer session.
Thanks for your Holiness teaching. We learned a lot today. And now, here are some questions from our students.
请第一位开始提问。
尊者吉祥，请问了不了义在其正见的重要性为何？及如何在生活中去渐次体会？谢谢尊者。
Chandrakirti Rinpoche says, so when presenting the correct view, why is the essence of true eloquence considered very important to study? And how can we use this meaning of this treatise in our daily life? So when we talk about the selflessness, there are the two selflessnesses, selflessness of persons and phenomena, and selflessness of the phenomena. Regarding that, there are the philosophical views of the Chittamatras and the Madhyamakas. So when we, from the point of view of the Chittamatras, what is said is that when we see things to be out there, separated from us, there is this strong attachment and anger and so forth that grows in us. And therefore, this Chittamatras say that things are not out there, but they are just the mere reflection or projection of the mind itself. So it helps to reduce that kind of a strong attachment towards the externality of things. And then in the Madhyamaka philosophical view system, so as Chandrakirti, Master Chandrakirti says, that though people may be learned and have good imprints from the past life, but they will not be able to understand this profound reality that is explained by Master Nagarjuna, such as Master Vasubandhu and so forth, have not, just as they have not understood it. Dignaga and so forth. And so in the we have this notion of things having some kind of objective essential existence in and of themselves, and then accordingly all the negative emotions arise in us. And so Master Tsongkapa goes through both the philosophical systems of Chittamatra and Madhyamakas in the essence of true eloquence. So when you do meditation on emptiness, this notion, the sense of an I that you have usually kind of dissolves. As it is said in the Madhyamaka Avatara, that all our destructive emotions arise from the identity view, or view of transitory recollections. And so we need to think about these and understand that the ignorance which holds on to some true independent existence in things and beings, and then our self-cherishing attitude, the self-centeredness, causes all ruins in us. And so with these two practices of the view of emptiness and this self-cherishing attitude, we need to counter the grasping at true independent existence in things and the self-cherishing attitude. When you don't think about these emotions, the destructive negative emotions, or the mental afflictions, you may not have any kind of a taste of what it means, what is meant by the lack of true existence and so forth. But when you give thought to them, you'll be able to see how they are ruinous. So when you do these reflection on these points on a daily basis, then when you actually have a strong experience of anger, attachment, and so forth, you'll be able to remind yourself of how things have no true existence.
38摄颂当中有一个偈颂说到，此生勤修白夜因。
So Jangya Rinpoche says, when we cannot become free from suffering automatically, please bless us to achieve liberation. So what is meant by automatic suffering? How can we check it in our connection with our life, daily life, and what is the meaning of a perfect happiness in Buddhism? I think this is the question.
지게도 랑신 동안 레미조 타버 토버 징기 로 셰베 랑신기 동안 니 셰바 예다 근데 난치 순베 콩그 저왕이 요르다 숑낭로라 데네 지게도 랑신 동안 레미조 타버 토버 징기 로 셰바다 데네 인낭네 랑신기 동안 데네 난치레 순베 양다베 대기 셰베 된 댕이 보강이 이칸라 모싱규.
So the questions are what is meant by automatic suffering. I think so this word automatic doesn't refer to the object to be negated that we usually understand in connection with emptiness. And so here, Rangshin Dungyel, or automatic or natural suffering, means suffering that we are come with. So, with regard to the teaching of the Buddha, the masters Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti have made the understanding of selflessness very clearly, very clear. And then the masters of Tibet all the masters of Tibetan Buddhist traditions have paid great attention to this, the fact that things have no inherent existence. And Je Rinpoche himself, particularly and specifically, has done a paid special attention to this and wrote his great treatises on the philosophical views of Madhyamaka, such as the 5 texts that were mentioned before, the insight sections of the great treatise of the stages of enlightenment and the intermediate stages, and then the commentaries to Madhyamaka Karika and Madhyamaka Avatara, and then this essence of true eloquence. So here, this suffering, Rangshin Dongyel, refers to the natural suffering that we have. Since time beginningless, we have this grasping at true existence, as well as on the basis of them created all kinds of karmas, and which bring about suffering. And so he refers to the suffering as the suffering that we are that has been accompanying us throughout this samsara. And so the word Rangshin here is not does not mean the inherent suffering as such, inherently existing. And then what is the meaning of perfect happiness? And so these are the lines from the end of 6th chapter of Madhyamaka Avatara. So we should have the understanding of conventional reality as well as the ultimate reality, and be equipped with both the wings of both these wings, and cross the ocean of samsara and reach the other shore of the Buddhahood, or the state of victorious ones. Thus illuminated by the rays of the wisdom light, the Bodhisattva sees as clearly as a gooseberry on his open palms that the 3 rams in the entirely unborn from the very start, and through the force of the conventional truth he journeys to cessation. And though his mind may rest continuously in cessation, he also generates and so forth.
要如何帮学校实验室中实验的小白鼠和做实验的人消业？实验动物里面的资料，实际上面我们每个人都在这个环境里面，市面上面所开发出来的对人体产生功效的药剂，都是实验动物里面出来的，采用在人体实验，最后呢才生产制造贩卖。
So how can we help purify the negative karmas of both the mice for research and experiment in the science laboratories and the research scientists themselves in the laboratories? Because all humans use the products of those researchers, can we also say that we are committing the negative action of killing? So with regard to that, so the scientists, with regard to the health care and health, they do the research on the microbes, the bacteria and so forth, and then also do experiment on animals, rats and others. So if it's done in order to benefit sentient beings, human beings, in order to save lives of human beings, with that kind of a right motive, if they are doing these experiments without having the motive of deliberately causing suffering, in order to cause suffering to sentient beings, it may be okay, but without having any kind of a feeling for these animals that are used for their experiment and research, then it may not be that beneficial. But with a view to save lives of human beings, if they do research and experiment with a sense of gratitude to these animals, and if they do their research and experiment, it may be considered beneficial.
Yes.
So to the in the context of the practice of equating and exchanging self and others, some bodhisattvas are said to take suffering of others on themselves and make them ripen upon themselves. Does it not contradict the teaching that a person cannot experience the result of the karma that he or she has not created? So the person asked, he has read accounts of bodhisattvas taking on sufferings of others and making them ripen upon themselves. And does it not contradict this law of causality? So in reality, there is no way one can take the suffering of all sentient beings upon oneself. But by intending to help of some specific sentient beings, to help them out of their suffering, the practitioners may be able to focus on that sentient being and able to take their suffering onto us themselves. So the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are infinite. Across the expanse of space, there are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, infinite number of them, but the suffering of sentient beings are not still taken away by them. But in the case of taking the suffering of others by bodhisattvas, both the bodhisattva and the person or the being from whom they take their suffering must have a very special, forceful karmic connection. So the question is, in the essence of true eloquence, so it is mentioned that through the sevenfold reasoning, one will be able to understand that of the meaning of selflessness of persons. So the mere fact of not finding a person through the sevenfold reasoning is not the actual understanding of the selflessness of person as such. But through the sevenfold reasoning and the fivefold reasoning, when you are not able to find a person as if there is some kind of a solidity in the person. And when that kind of a solidity in a person is dissolved through these reasonings, perhaps you have gained insight into the selflessness of persons. But if you just, through these reasonings, if you just think, oh, the person is not there, or nothing exists, I mean, it may not be the true insight into selflessness. But when you're able to see that people, beings, and things are like illusion through your understanding of emptiness, then it helps to engage in bodhisattva practices of helping others, seeing their condition of suffering and so forth. And therefore, both the understanding of emptiness and the illusion-like nature of things must go hand in hand, as it is said at the end of the sixth chapter of Madhyamaka Avatara. So if you say that you are meditating on emptiness and say there's nothing there that exists, that's not the true understanding. As Dromtempa says, of course, your hand and your head are both empty of any inherent intrinsic existence. But if you hit your hand on your head, you'll have pain. So what happens to us is things appear to us to have some kind of a solid inherent existence, and accordingly we grasp and cling on to that, cling to it. And that causes all kinds of problems, as Master Nagarjuna says. So we see things, and then we cling to some kind of a solidity, inherent existence. And he says, karma and delusions, overcoming them, through overcoming them, there is liberation, and so forth. And so he also says the attachment, anger, and confusion arise from our conceptual thoughts. And these, in turn, arise from clinging to inherent existence. So this faulty mind or cognition, which holds on to some kind of existence from the objective side, as if there is some objectivity in things. This is the source of all our problems. And so this has to be overcome, not just any kind of thought.
懂地时空之前，是不是必须要先懂一体的二取空？那如果是这样的话，那随于且秩序派所说的地时空，是不是就跟随理行秩序派所说的地时空有一点微细的差别？那如果懂地时空之前，并不需先懂二取空的话，那这样子是否对于随于且秩序派而言，懂地时空的时候，懂地时空之后，自然就能够懂二取空？那这样子，为什么随经不行秩序派不会发生这样的事情？
到底主要的，空嘅主要的，那就把我结束送俾让住俾人所答呢。
Correct. So according to the Yogacara Savatantrika Madhyamakas,
空嘅主要的，那就把我结束送俾乌马的让住把人所嘅谢苏答呢。的呢，点住嘅东巴多巴啦，送经嘅东巴多国上马国。
So is it necessary that in order to realize the the things lack that of inherent existence? Is it necessary to see the non-duality of things? So is it necessary to realize the non-duality first? So according to the these Savatantrika Madhyamakas, the Yogacharas, Savatantrika Savatantrika Madhyamakas say that things do exist the way they appear to us. So, which means things have some objective existence. And it has connection with this non-duality. So both the Savatantrika Madhyamakas and the Chittamatras do assert that there is appearance of things from their own side, objectively, and that is true. That appearance is true as well. So whether it's internal experience or there are external appearances, internal experiences or external appearances. So according to the Madhyamakas, what is said is that things are devoid of any true existence right at that moment when they appear. And so in order to see that things are without any objective existence, the best understanding or the explanation is found in Chandrakirti's writings. So otherwise, you may talk about non-duality, although they say external things do not exist, just as they appear to this deluded mind, yet the Chittamatras, for example, still assert some existence, objective existence of consciousness. And therefore, to destroy this objectification in things, Master Chandrakirti's texts are the most precise and excellent. So the questions are done now, and there's a report, summary report of this discourse of the organizers. So the teaching on essence of true eloquence, I have given the essential points from this text. So with regard to the pandemic that we are going through, perhaps by next year it will be over. And then my teachings at the main temple here, as well as Bodh Gaya and other places, I hope we would be able to do this. And I am determined to give teachings in these places. But in the meantime, we need to be careful of the pandemic, this viral disease. So after the pandemic is over, I'm ready to resume my teachings as I used to do previously to the disciples from Taiwan, China, and other places.
The following section is the financial report of this organization. That's welcome.
尊敬的尊者，各位法师、大德与贵宾们好！感戴尊圣达赖喇嘛尊者对华人勤法团法语恩泽数十载，至今不断，让华人佛弟子 与在场的学子，在新冠疫情严峻的当下，仍然能够聚会此处，一同聆听法教，思维法理，令福智增长，尤其难得殊胜，值得大家感恩与珍惜。今年度再度由噶举解脱协会承办法脉总会请法的殊胜使命。
So stop for a minute. So I'll go to the loo first. So wait a minute.
“各位来宾，法王需要去一下洗手间，我们先稍后片刻。”
麻烦打开法本的长寿祈请文段落，第12页，第12页。
我因生这三昧境，我欲随所调，实现幻化，我要积善妙宗，愿如意报世界恩泽上。海会中，我的梦里因盘成其心血与火，定金刚错尊长寿。
So they are saying the long life prayer of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which was composed by the two late tutors, Gyabje Yongzin Ling Dorji Chang and Gyabje Yongzin Chijang Dorji Chang.
一切本尊诸天，梦里因盘成其心血与火灼定金刚所尊长寿义，百劫永坚固喜悦乐云成，其家持断真功德混元功虚孽尽相中，界海很有熄灭环绕。 是地天中天无边三世一切生者中，我的梦云盘成其心血与火，定心感所尊长寿一种百劫永坚固喜悦热云成般其加持从三世间必定解脱出出生起清净珍宝月。
So the long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Om Swasti, O ye hosts of life and ancestral lamas, wish-granting gems, source of all goods of life and peace, magical show creating whatever educates beings, replete with the three secrets of fabulous Buddhas. As we pray with fierce intensity, please grant your blessings that Tenzin Gyatso, savior of the land of snows, may live immortal, secure for 100 eons, and his heart's great mission be effortlessly fulfilled. O ye host of archetypal Buddha deities who rise in countless habitat and inhabitant mandalas in magical clouds of atom-free super bliss, primal intuition, filling the entire range of the all-clear reality realm. As we pray with fierce intensity, please grant your blessings that Tenzin Gyatso, savior of land of snows, may live immortal, secure for 100 eons, and his heart's great mission be effortlessly fulfilled. And then next is a prayer to the Buddhas, and then the Dharma, then those of the Sangha, and then the Dakas and Dakinis, and then Dharma protectors, with the same refrain at the end. And then, O ye oceans of defenders of the teaching, with your wisdom eyes, with your powers of protect teaching and upholders, inseparably stamped upon your deadlock the sealing knot, sign of your oath to obedience, to Vajradhara Buddha, as we pray with fierce intensity. Please grant your blessings that Tenzin Gyatso, savior of land of snows, may live immortal, secure for 100 eons, and his heart's great mission be effortlessly fulfilled. Thus, by the power of the intense, heartfelt, devoted prayers to all of you who are our supreme, unfailing refuges, we who suffer the wounds of this endless evil age, may our soul savior, Sir Ngawang Losang Tenzin Gyatso, not losing the three Buddha's secrets, immutable, unfailing, totally invincible, stay firm upon his diamond essence throne, unwavering for oceans of ages, and he whose jewel essence of holy, helpful deeds make great waves, taking upon his altars with his heroic courage the burden of responsibility of the deeds of all the fabulous Buddhas, may his every wish spontaneously be accomplished. By that force may the door in space open upon the perfect golden age, and embodied beings be liberated in a springtime renaissance, and embodied beings liberated in a springtime renaissance, and of the great spread of sages' teaching through all times and regions, may the virtuous banner broadly wave on the summit of life and peace. May the stream of elixir of the blessings of Padmapani always ripen our maturity in the inner core of our hearts, and may we please him with the offering of achieving what he teaches, and cross the oceans of supreme all-good enlightened life.
This is the end of the long life prayer.
By the blessings of wondrous Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, by the reality of the unreal feeling, relativity, and by the force of my genuine universal responsibility, may all the aims of these prayers easily and quickly be accomplished.
今年再度由噶举解脱协会承办法脉总会请法的殊胜使命，克尊尊者不分教派弘传佛法的精神，让3天的佛法教育如期圆满。本次2020年华人请法团共计1209人参与，收支明细报告如下：报名费收入共310万2千元，总支出286万1983元，结余24万017元，全数供养尊者达赖喇嘛。诚愿以本次达赖喇嘛尊者说法及弟子学法之功德，回向尊者及诸善知识，法轮常转，法体安康。祈愿佛法四海普传，遍布宏宇，各教派相依为法，在菩提道上的法友们能够一同相互砥砺增长，通往解脱的路途上同登彼岸。
For this year, there are more than 1,200 people joined this teaching in Taiwan. And totally, we got $240,017 New Taiwan dollar balance. For this balance and this money, we will offer it to Gaden Podang. And it is our deepest wishes that one day we can meet you in Taiwan and receive your teaching directly. Thank you.
Thank you. So the Buddha has mentioned that you are your own master. So what kind of life you would have, happy one or suffering, and also attainment of Buddhahood depends on, are in your hands. So, of course, we can make prayers to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Lama, and so forth, but the main factor is your own effort in the practice of the Dharma. And therefore, the main practice that you should do is that of the Bodhichitta and the way of emptiness. Of course, I also do deity yoga practices. These practices that I do of the deity yoga are for these I have received the initiations from my lamas. But main transformation comes from bodhicitta and the view of emptiness, for which I find these texts, the Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charyavatara, the Mula Madhyamaka Avatara by Nagarjuna, and Chandrakirti's Madhyamaka Avatara by Chandrakirti. And so from relying on these texts and others and applying the teaching within myself, I can say that I have found some change within myself. I've made some progress from the last year to this year. I have found this change. And you could also make this transformation through the practice of the Dharma, even if you may engage. Otherwise, even if you may engage in the study and practice, if there's no transformation within yourself, that the study and practice has not served their purpose. And when you, of course, check yourself, how you were in 10 years ago and now, and you see that you have made some transformation, you'll be able to see that you have made some good progress, and this is good. So otherwise, without doing any practice on your part, but just simply making wishes and requesting prayers will not help. As Buddha himself said, you're your own master. And then the sages, he said, sages do not wash away the sins of sentient beings, nor do they remove the suffering of sentient beings with his hands. So the Buddha has given his teaching to us about how the true nature of how things exist and so forth. And what we need to do is study them and reflect on them and then meditate on them. And through these processes, then you should make sure that you can make some progress and transformation within yourself. I do that myself, and I can see the change and transformation within myself. And it is important, very important for every one of you to do your practice without any without failing.
那么能够利益一切有情，我们一起向法王说谢谢法王，谢谢法王。